So let's talk about activity planning. Now, when you hear that phrase, it's pretty easy to just picture a simple to-do list, right? But it's so much more than that. Think of it like the actual architectural blueprint that decides whether a project is going to succeed or if it's going to fail. To make this feel real, let's imagine we're planning a project together. Let's say we're building a new community garden. We're going to use that example to break down the real objectives of planning and see why it's probably the most important first step you can take.
So, just imagine for a second. We try to build this community garden with no real plan. What do you think happens? Total chaos. You've got volunteers showing up with shovels when what you really need are hammers. Somebody goes out and buys 100 packets of seeds, but completely forgets to get any soil, and no one has a clue where the water line is. See, a solid plan is the antidote to all of that confusion. It's all about bringing order and a clear sense of purpose to what can be a really complex goal.
All right, so the very first job of any good plan is to give us a serious reality check. This is what we call the feasibility assessment. Before we even start dreaming about all the veggies we're going to harvest from our garden, we have to be brutally honest about whether we can even build the thing in the first place.
And this, right here, this is the big question. This isn't about being optimistic, it's about looking at the cold, hard facts. For our garden project, that means asking things like, hey, do we actually have permission to use this piece of land? Do we have enough volunteers who are willing to give up their weekends? Do we even have a basic budget for tools and supplies? A good plan forces you to answer these tough questions right up front, before a single dollar is spent or an hour is wasted.
You know, feasibility really just boils down to two main things. First, do you have the right people with the right skills when you need them? For our garden, that's not just any volunteer. You might need someone who actually knows carpentry to build the raised beds. And second, can you do multiple things at once to save time, or does everything have to happen one step after another? Like, can we get the soil ready while someone else is building the beds? Answering that one question can change your entire timeline.
So let's take the next logical step. You've done your homework, you've run the numbers, and hey, the community garden looks like it's actually feasible. That's great. But that yes is a conditional yes. It's only possible if you use your resources the right way. And that brings us to the next major objective.
Resource allocation. It isn't just about handing out tasks. It's way more strategic. For our garden, the plan has to answer, who's on digging duty? When exactly do we need that truck to show up with the compost? And here's the critical one. How does our timeline affect our resources? For instance, if we decide we want the garden ready by June instead of July, well, we're probably going to need a lot more volunteers for that big build weekend. The plan makes that trade-off crystal clear.
And that link between time and resources, it leads us straight to the next crucial objective. You gotta follow the money. I mean, the volunteer time for our garden might be free, but the lumber, the soil, the tools, all that stuff has a price tag. And the plan is where we add it all up. This is the question that every single person involved is going to ask. For our garden, it's not just about the total cost at the end, it's also about cash flow along the way. The plan has to predict when we'll need money for the lumber versus when we'll need it for the seeds a few weeks later. This helps the whole team manage the budget without any of those nasty surprises. And here's something that's so important to get. You cannot get an accurate cost estimate for the garden until you've planned out your activities and figured out your resources. Any number you come up with before that, it's just a guess, a shot in the dark. The plan is what turns that pure guesswork into a financial forecast you can actually rely on.
Okay, so we've talked about feasibility, resources, and costs. But you know what? Projects aren't just spreadsheets and materials. They're about people. A truly great plan has to focus on the human element, and that means two things: motivation and coordination. Just think about it for a second. What's going to motivate our garden volunteers? Vague promises or clear, achievable goals like, okay team, this Saturday, our mission is to build all 10 raised beds. A plan gives you those clear targets. And you know what really supercharges motivation? When the volunteers themselves are involved in setting those goals. It gives everyone a real sense of ownership and purpose. Now, motivation gets people to show up, but it's coordination that keeps them from tripping over each other. I mean, in any project that involves more than one person, coordination is absolutely the key to avoiding wasted effort and those frustrating bottlenecks. So the plan becomes this central hub for communication. It's the single source of truth that tells everyone what they need to know when they need to know it. The person in charge of fundraising for our garden knows the exact date the money for the lumber is needed. The planting team knows precisely when the beds will be filled with soil and ready to go. It just prevents surprises and keeps the whole operation running like a well-oiled machine. So let's just pull back for a second.
We've walked through the big objectives, checking if it's feasible, allocating resources, costing everything out, and then motivating and coordinating the team. But what's the ultimate payoff? What's the real end game for all this work? This is it. This is the result of all that planning. Because you checked feasibility and allocated your resources smartly for the garden, you find ways to shorten the build time. Because you costed everything out in detail, you keep spending under control and you don't run out of money halfway through. The end result is simple. You get the project done in the fastest time possible for an acceptable cost, all while making sure everyone is on the same page.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. It's so easy to look at planning as just, drawing up a timeline, but that really misses the whole point of why it's so incredibly powerful.
Great planning is what turns an ambitious idea, like a brand new community garden, from a what-if into a reality. It's the process that proves the work can even be done. It gives people the tools and the motivation to do it, and it coordinates all their efforts to a successful finish. So, the next time you start any project, just remember, the plan isn't just the first step, it's the step that makes all the other steps actually matter.